I'm going to talk you through this amazing drive system here. Automatics, who would have thought? More than 50% of all four-wheel drives used off-road now are automatics. In the past, they were all manual because autos just weren't good enough. Now, I'll never own another manual. So an automatic with this system is stunning. It gives me all the control I could ever hope for. I don't see how they can improve it. Let's go for a drive. So we're in low 4 right now. So I'm going to come out of low 4 and I'm going to go into high 2. And we're going to drive in, of all the silly places, into the loosest gravel we can find in two-wheel drive. Now remember, these things actually come in two-wheel drive. Now, if I just give it absolute full throttle in two-wheel drive, see how it's moving us forward? It's not allowing me to rev the engine, but it's just taking us all the way through that really loose gravel. That's called passive traction control, and the whole idea of it is that it won't let you just dig a big hole and get stuck. It will just keep working each individual wheel with all the traction that's available to pull us through places. So if you end up buying a two-wheel drive HILUX because you don't think you need four-wheel drive, we've still got that amazing capability, and it still has a manual crosslock if you're fully loaded and you need a bit extra as well. So don't think the two-wheel drive isn't capable, it really seriously is. So two-wheel drive, passive traction control, and it's still really good in the loose stuff. Now, let's go on around. I'm going to go into low range four-wheel drive. We'll go through here, full throttle, and there it is, making sure I get through. If it's physically possible, it'll help me. Now we're going to flick it into high 4. We can do that on the fly, and because of where we're going to go into low range. We must be stationary. To get into low 4, we must have our four-wheel drive symbol up. We should always change into high 4 on the move. Try not to do it stationary because it has to have that green symbol solid before it will attempt to go into low 4. When you're in high 4, I'll just take that back. If you forget to put it in neutral, there we go, I've got it in gear. If you forget and you go into low 4, see how it's flashing? That's just saying I haven't done my bit. So it needs to be in neutral, and then bang, we'll go through. When we're in low 4, that's its maximum capability. So we've got our stability turned off, we've got our traction control not passive anymore but full active, which means we can give it the full jandle and it'll let us redline it. So this is where we could roll it if we wanted to. Of course we're not about to do that, but let's just see how much we can control this vehicle. Now remember, it's straight off the factory floor. This one's got 165 kilometers on it. And remember that right off the factory floor, these vehicles are amazingly stable. They're amazingly capable. This is on factory tyres, which are designed to be really, really safe on a highway, and yet still allow us to do remarkable things off-road. Yes, we can go to more aggressive tyres if we need to, but people would be really surprised what they're capable of doing. Now the level of control in the automatic and how you can sneak around. Let's just stop here and just show you we've got hill hold assist. So if I park here and we wanted to go forward, you'd normally have to do a handbrake start because we'd roll back. But with these vehicles we don't have to. We've got 4 seconds when we come off the brake when it actually holds on the brake, which means we can just go to the throttle and drive off. And that will work whether we need to back up or drive forward on a hill.
So what angle, Pete, is the rollover angle?
Well, it's hard to tell you what the rollover angle is because at the end of the day you can roll one on an airstrip if you're really, really silly and you turn all the safety features off. Okay, so realistically for the vehicle literally to reach the point where it's going to roll, it's actually about 54 degrees. Now 54 degrees is beyond what I call your arseometer point. It's beyond the point where your brain will say I can drive on this angle safely. Most people feel like they're going to roll at about 30-35 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, so that there, maybe 30, not really even there
really?
yet. Yeah, it will go another 20 degrees before we even start. I can lift wheels and it will still be safe. So it goes a bit further than you think. Now let's go out of low 4. I'm going to talk you through some of this fantastic transmission system. Remember, it's telling me I haven't done my bit. I had to go to neutral, and I'm just going to go into two-wheel drive here. Just flick it out. I'm going to cover more of that on speed in a minute. What I want to do though is talk about this system down here, this remarkable gear system. So you'll see that we've got eco, we've got power, And these are the drive modes. It's a bit like factory chipping. So you hear people aftermarket chipping. Well, Toyota actually have a chip version of this right on here as a standard feature. And then we've got our 6-speed automatic gearbox with sequential shift, which I'll talk you through soon. So we relate this back to what the engine can do. The engine produces two things, power and torque. Torque is grunt, low revs. So at low revs, around these revs here, this is what we're doing if we want to change up through the gear and get really good economy. So at 100 kilometres an hour, these are the sort of revs we're doing. We're talking about 1800 revs at 100 k's in 6th gear. The engine's only purring. Now, if we want to pull out and overtake cars, we need to really make the engine perform. And like a sports car, that happens in the high end of the rev range. So let's take it up. So if we really want it to sing, this is where it produces maximum kilowatts, 3.7. Now that's absolutely full throttle. It's on the floor. Can't blow it up, not going to hurt it, but it's not producing any more energy there. So if we want to overtake cars, don't be frightened to give it the jandle. Okay, now to help it to do that is what this fantastic feature here is. So let me put it into eco mode, let me put it into drive, and let's go for a drive. We want it in eco to get up through the gears at low revs to take advantage of the torque and fuel economy, and to help prevent any loss of traction through wheel spin. So here we go, we're at 2000 RPM, and we're slowly climbing up. We can do 100 kilometres an hour and never go over 2000 revs if we want to. So that's just using eco mode. Now, let me just come to a stop here. If we want real aggressive acceleration now, and I press the power button, all that's going to change. You watch what happened to the rev counter now when I give it the jandle. I got a wheel spin immediately, so we didn't get that before. But if I actually start putting power down, look where it's going to change gear. So now it changes it up around 4000 RPM, see? So now it'll shift right at those higher revs and take advantage of massive acceleration. So that's what all that's about. What most people don't realise is that there is a third mode. So see how it's showing power? If I press power again, nothing showing. If I press eco. If I press eco again, nothing showing. That's the in-between mode, that's the middle mode. Now that's the most intuitive mode and what most people will drive in with never touching those buttons. In this mode, if you use a small amount of throttle, it will change up nice and low in the revs. If you start giving it the jandle because you want to overtake it, says, oh, he wants aggression, and so it will now intuitively say, I'll drive more aggressively and change it higher revs for you. So that in-between mode is what most people will use. We could use eco in snow and ice, eco in green grass, because that would actually prevent the loss of traction in the first place because it's dozy. But sometimes you're in a mud puddle or you're in sand and you really need to get out of trouble quickly, then power mode will absolutely spike the power for you. Okay.
Is it true with the intuitive mode, you hear people talk about the engine learning the driver's style?
Absolutely.
And it memorises how that works?
It memorises it, but it's very quick to memorise it and actually change and learn. So if you drive for a little bit with a dozy throttle, it will then be dozy. But if you automatically think, oh, I need to overtake some cars, and you snap it down, it will recognise the speed at which you come down, the speed at which you come off, the speed at which you take to the pedal, to the brake pedal, and it says, oh, well, now he's starting to move his feet quick, and it is that fast at learning. Go back to being dozy, and it will immediately go back to being dozy. It's very sharp and intuitive. In the old days, it used to take a week for it to get its, ducks lined up. Nowadays, no. Now, it's passive traction control. Remember that feature that stopped us from getting into trouble in the soft sand, in the soft gear, in the gravel? Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it the jandle big time around this corner, because passive traction control stops you from wiping out in snow. So you watch. We're going to come into here. I've got full throttle on, and it didn't skid the back out. Here, that totally managed the throttle to prevent me losing control of the vehicle.
Yep.
Now that's really, really handy on a snow-covered road or on a wet, slippery road after it's been dry for a while. It actually helps you from getting into trouble. Now that's useless if we're on a gravel road where it's all slippery, but you actually want to tow a trailer or a horse float or something. Now watch this. If we actually go to high 4, which we can do at any time, we could be doing up to 100 kilometres an hour, two-wheel drive, flicking into high 4 because we're coming onto the gravel, throttle off, throttle back on, we're now in high 4. Now let me come to a stop and just show you what happens now. We've changed traction control to active, but we've got our stability program still fully active. So let me actually show you. Let me give it full throttle, no loss of traction, no loss of control, but if I actually start, you watch. So what it's actually doing, while I'm violently turning, that I just held the throttle hard on, and it's actually saying, well, I'll give you active traction, but my stability program is still fully active. I won't let you roll this vehicle over. So good for gravel, because you can hit those corrugations, pull out of them, but if you start hitting the gravel and heading off the side of the road through the fence, it's going to react to make sure you don't roll.
So is there any minimum or maximum time that you can leave it in high 4?
No, you can leave it in high 4 so long as you don't go over 100 kilometres an hour. You should never leave it in 4 on a hard, firm surface. Always take it out of high 4 on a hard, firm. But hey, if I'm towing a big caravan and I tow a 29 footer and it's been really dry and I get a big share of rain and I touch the brakes coming down a hill and the old ABS goes tick, 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 I'll hit it into high 4, because if it's slippery enough for ABS to respond, that's enough slippage for four-wheel drive to be engaged. And then just take it out when you feel it's safe again. Yep. Okay. So we're in four-wheel drive high. We're driving along. Let me just clarify. You should never try to change it between two-wheel drive and high 4 after you're stuck, or come to a gate and say, I'm in two-wheel drive. I want to go into low 4. Always get high 4 solid before you stop. Let me show you why. There it is. High 4 throttled off. We're now fully engaged, and so therefore when I engage low 4, it will always go in when I do my part and hit neutral. If the green is solid, low 4 will always work. Now, back into high 4, and I'm going to go into high 2. Let's just say we've driven along, we're at the farm gate, or we got stuck in two-wheel drive. I'm stationary now, and I'm going to try and select high 4. See how the light is flashing, but it's not going in. Now, if I try to select low 4, it's not even going to try, because it hasn't. Remember, there's two distinct moves. One is connecting the drive shafts, and at the moment our drive shafts are hitting the gears like this. We need to revolve them to do that bit. So let's just do that. Let's just drive forward a little bit. See how little it took just for those gears to go like that? Now it'll do that bit every time. Now that's the biggest fault I find with owners of these things, is they get stuck or they go into low range. It's beeping because I'm not doing my bit. You just need to always think, if it's beeping, it's sending me a message. I need to do something. Just think about what that might be. So we're in low 4. Now, the other real beautiful thing about this vehicle is its sequential mode. So we've been in drive. If we want to have really good control and we come across to sequential, it shows S4. So it'll use 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, but it won't go above 4th. If we're towing a caravan, I can leave it in sequential. I've got a 5-speed automatic now, and it just won't go into 6. So say I'm driving along in 5th on the road and I'm going to go down a big hole or a big descent, I can immediately downshift, and I've got manual downshift. Okay? Anytime I can go back to drive. Now, if I go to 3rd, it'll use 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. If I go to 2nd, it'll use 1, 2, 2, 1, but it won't go above whatever is showing there. That is the ceiling gear. So that's really useful. If I'm on a gravel road, for instance, with a horse float, I might go to S3. So I'm not going to have too much speed, and it won't be changing up and down through the gears on the windies. That's, to me, there is no other gearbox on the market that manages itself as well as this gearbox. So we're locked in first gear. Now if I just jerk the throttle, it actually feels like a manual. And that's the beauty of it. So here we go, we're going to drive off down the side of. It's not a normal place to drive, but because we can. Low range four-wheel drive. We've got a high performance on-road vehicle, and yet we've got this vehicle that it's the most capable HILUX they've ever produced. There's no question in my mind that any other HILUX, if we were to compare them, it wouldn't beat this one.
So those gearbox features, Pete, are in our other all-wheel drive models?
Well, they're in, yes, actually, funnily enough, even in the Rev we can have a similar system, whereupon we can actually hold it back through the gears and put a ceiling gear. And I don't find it in too many other manufacturers. When you come across to sequential, it actually locks you in first, and if you want to go up a gear, you have to manually select up, or you maybe can select second. On this one now, you watch, I'll select, say, 3rd. Now when I take off, it'll just go through to 3rd. Now, where's that useful? Here's a bit of sand in front, and I need to get through a real soft bit. So if I set 3rd, for instance, and I got to here, I can really give it the jandle, and it's absolutely going to fire through. Now, if I want maximum speed, I'll hit power, I select third. Now watch what happens. And all of a sudden it will launch. So it's got the subtle ability to sneak. It's got the power to bite when it needs to. It kind of like, it's a bit like a symphony. You just choose which bits you want to play with. Now, let's have a go at this. This is a serious cross axle. I've locked it down into first gear. We're going to come in here and the dynamic weight shifter vehicles. So when we come through here, we've got no load on the back, we've got a heavy engine. It's going to waggle the tail and the front wheels will follow these ditches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rear axle cross lock for a start, and I'm going to come in here very quietly, and it's going to take the front wheel down, because remember the engine's the heavy end, so it's going to waggle that rear tyre right off the ground. Okay, so all the traction is really coming from the right hand rear. We're going to get to here now, and the engine is the heavy end again, so now it's going to take the left front down into the hole, and it's driving mostly on the left rear. Now it's fairly extreme, those holes, and yet the control that I've got to go through that area there is phenomenal. Now just put that down into a washed out riverbed or a farm where there's a bit of a borehole and you drove into it by mistake or something like that, and you think, oh God, I've got to walk and get the tractor. All of a sudden, nah, just give it a little bit of throttle, let the system do its work and steer it through. It will take you places that in the past these vehicles could never go. This is the most advanced electronic traction control system. Now I put the rear diff lock in. Frankly, you don't need to do that. It will drive through there on its own, but it has to have wheel spin to do that. So that's really, really handy in mud, in places like that. Just let it drive and give it some throttle. In the real dry stuff with a good load on, and you want to sneak real quietly without rolling it over, that's where the manual locker comes in. So basically it's tools in your toolbox. You've got all these different tools. Knowing how to harness them kind of means you've got a beast.
Excellent.
And there you go.
So,
Thanks, Pete.
2019 HILUX.
Not bad.
Thanks, mate.